here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Christmas special of the Scouser and the Scot.
Well,
Yeah!
fucking hell, they've already started. So the alcohol isn't actually flowing. It's just 3 additional grumpy old bastards.
The fucking is, I'm already drinking.
There he is. And it's back, as you can already hear, the swearing, the F-bombs. That can only mean it's Brother Coop. How the hell are you doing, Brother Coop?
How are we doing, guys?
Well?
This is the last show of the year. The last show of the year. And probably the last show ever once it gets completely banged for all the stuff that I'm going to say. But amazing. Christmas special. Let's have some fun.
Exactly. Then well done. You didn't actually drop an F-bomb in the fucking
Fuck off.
So,
I didn't think that was possible.
When's this actually going out? Is this going out on Christmas Day?
Oh, it's
we might do actually. We might do.
Yeah.
So, and next, obviously, it's our guest who is basically part of the furniture now. Matt Jones, how the hell are you doing?
I'm sound, mate. I've just had a nap actually. I'm very tired, but I've got some caffeine. I'll be with you in a few minutes.
All right, I'll come back to you, but like I say, I'll get the beeper ready for when you drop the. Yeah,
I'm not going to say it.
You're already one behind Coop, right? Okay, so and finally, last but not least, someone who's part of the Voodoo family himself,
Omar Jalili.
Hampson.
Omar Jalili.
I'm like a cross between Omar Jalili and Alexi Sale.
Yeah,
we are going to do lookalike sometime through the show tnie, and we are going to take a piss. So
I'm not really a train driver, you know.
How you doing, brother? How you doing, PK?
I'm really good. I'm absolutely fantastic. Yes, it's what could possibly go wrong? I am absolutely on top of the world. It's Christmas. It's New Year. My favourite time of year. Everything is good.
Oh, do you like Christmas?
Well, do you know who doesn't like Christmas?
Oh,
Matt Jones.
You fucking go. Who doesn't like Christmas? Oh, I hate it. I hate the pressure of it. I hate the pressure of it.
What, you Santa Claus? You've got no pressure.
Have you ever had a girlfriend?
Except Scottish, I don't buy anything anyway. No, I don't mind it.
I'll tell you,
it's all right. We're Scouts. We don't either.
When I was at high school, there was a girl in our class, and they were a bit rough. The family.
Was that
Yoda?
You meant her then?
No, I mean like really rough. And she came back after Christmas and New Year, and somebody said, "What did you get for a present?" She said, "We never got anything." Says, "Why?" "My dad made us all turn Jehovah's Witness on the 15th." and then it got to New Year's Eve, and he fucking turned back again. And it was right.
That's a way to get out. Maybe that guy's a genius. Maybe that's what I need to do this year.
I ended up working beside him years later. Because it was one of them where I'm having this chat, and I said, "You know, girl," I said, "I remember this girl in my class." I says, "And her fucking dad turned Jehovah." He says, "That was me," and he was really proud of the fact.
So before we get kicked off for all anti-Semitism and everything else that he's bringing up, let's talk about the year, what we've got planned for this show and stuff like that. So tonight it's not your normal Scouts and the Scot. It's just let's have a look back at the year. Let's talk about some funny music stories. Let's talk about everything else, and we're going to be grumpy old bastards like Stadler and Waldorf, and we're going to put the world to rights tonight with these lovely guests that we've got. So let's start tonight with, how was 2021 for you?
Shit!
It was shit.
Thanks, Matt.
I really liked it. I thought it was all right. Am I being really bad here?
I preferred 2020, honestly. I mean, all the death and shit was pretty hard, but I don't know. Like, I feel like the aftermath of 2020 was way worse, and that we saw all that in 21 with like just how backed up gigs were and torn audiences were and oversaturation. That's why I thought 21 was way harder than the actual pandemic, because when everything kicks off in 2020, and I'm sure everyone experienced it, the whole like rock and metal community was so supportive of artists. And it was kind of a really good coming together, but I feel like it kind of eroded into 2021 and it became a bit more dog eat dog for bands and musicians. And that's why I thought 2021 was way harder. I think there was a bit of a shift. Sorry to take a serious turn, but yeah, I didn't enjoy this year.
You have got a valid point, because it was like every man and his dog were fighting. You just to get a gig, and instead of like trying to help each other out, which we were doing the year before.
Exactly.
And I can see where you're coming from on that, and I think it's a bit of a strange one, like, because I kind of enjoyed the actual supportiveness of everyone else trying to like go, yeah, let's push each other, let's like try and help each other. And now it's like, how did you get on that gig? Why?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
There was occasional bands who were brilliant, and there was occasional promoters who were brilliant, and I think the problem is you get one kind of crappy band or one kind of crappy promoter who lets you down, and you kind of feel like that's everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, without picking names, I remember I did a gig in London. It was postponed, like everyone's postponed and postponed. It was only in the Cavendish, so what, it was holds 92, sold out. And I couldn't do it, and then I did it and had to split it into two. Then Verity White just said, I'm going to support you. It's like, you can't support me. But she did, 3. She was in a support act. We did 2 shows in 2 days. And actually things like that, you're thinking that would never happen before. And doing 2 shows in 2 days was cool as well. But yeah, it wasn't all bad. I don't think it was all bad. But then I'm a Dundee United fan, and we didn't get relegated, so it's a good year for me. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you something, mate, you're obviously not a fucking promoter if you think it wasn't a bad year. If there's one way to guarantee losing money, it's put on a gig right now. And I tell you one thing before I bring Coop in, but one of the things that I've noticed is there seems to be, since it started up again, there seems to be a new fashion, which is daft bastards trying to outdo each other at how many times they can go and see the same band.
Yeah.
And they're trying to outdo. I've been 6 times on this.
I think we all know what bands we're talking about when we say that. Like, yeah, people go into like, 10, 15 dates on a tour. Like, what are you doing by supporting the community there? You're not.
I don't mind that too much, but what I do mind is when you say, you're going to see this band, Peter, but yeah, I'm going to go and catch them in Stoke or London or whatever. And anywhere else, you go, no, I'm just going to catch him once. And they say, you call yourself a true fan. Hold on here. Do you know what I mean? I don't see my mum every day of the week, but I love her. It's a weird kind of concept.
The one thing I always got, like, when we do gigs in like little pubs and stuff, you always get that old guy who's like proud of the fact he's from the 60s and going, oh, I've seen Alice Cooper 73 times. And like,
he's got his badge. Yeah, he's got his badge
older than me.
No one's like that with the Bay City Rollers, in fairness.
But it was all right. I was all right. You used to be able to be proud to be a Bay City Roller fan until Tam Payton get found out.
Oh, damn. It was the whole sort of last 2 years basically put together. It started off really optimistic, didn't it? And we were like,
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Look, we've got a community. Let's all work together. And then there kind of became this horrible dawn of realization. It was like venues really are going to close, bands really are going to split up, and some will not survive this. And at first it was like, is that really going to happen? And then we realized it was going to happen. And then you got this real horrible thing where it became a bit of a, like you say, a bit of a feeding frenzy of trying to now I'm streaming my live show and now I'm going to do this.
That's exactly the problem. I think most people experienced, and it's like it was kind of just whoever had the biggest social media would win, because if there was if there was 10 live streams on one night, which there was a lot of everybody was aiming for the Friday and Saturday nights. If you were competing, with, I don't know, whatever, one of the big bands, Wagons or Mason Hill or whatever, or Stone Broken, you were competing with one of them bands. Half your audience is gone already. So it's like,
so it became this really weird sort of thing of going from like, before the pandemic, where it was difficult to get shows and there was fighting for shows and blah, 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 to switching to, it was fighting for social media and that type of space. So the battle didn't change. Like we're all still fighting a little bit, but it just became really ugly because it was online and you could very obviously see
everyone could see it.
Very front facing. And my thoughts though was like, ultimately, it's on a long enough timeline. Everybody gets found out. If you're a good band, you will be successful. If you're a horrible bastard, you'll get found out. It will just happen. And what digital medium will do is bring a lot of this out. You'll start to see it. We all know these people are dicks, and we all know these bands are not doing what they support the scene. And it goes back to that whole thing of like you say, the guy who's saying, I've seen Alice Cooper 250 times, and all these people who just want to be seen going to shows, they're not really, do you know what I mean? It's like they're going to get to show. It's the same person that goes to the show and goes, I know the band, do I have to pay to get in?
Yeah, because
like,
it becomes like a characteristic about them rather than them enjoying the music and enjoying buying.
But that's no different than I mean, I've done the same. It's like on Facebook when people, I learned this from the Wayward Sons gig, and I couldn't believe, I'm quite naive, when I spoke to Wayward Sons, people were saying, oh, Toby Jebson, I know him really well. He's good, mate. You'll get on well with him. And I was kind of quite naive. I'm like, yeah, of course, that'd be great. But what I realised is, when they said you knew him really well, you meant you saw the Little Angels.
Exactly.
And he signed something. And on social media, I noticed it. There's an incident that happened a couple of days ago on social media that, without going into it, it's kind of bad news. So I kind of messaged the guy, gave the guy involved a call, and that's not a problem. And we had a good chat and what have you. But then everyone else, you go on page, and everyone's tagging in the name. Because look at me, I know this person. Exactly. And I can't bear it. I can't bear that. Look at me, I know this person.
So, big question then. It is having access to artists as easily as we do a good thing?
Good and bad, I suppose, isn't it? It's swings and roundabouts.
It definitely is. Like, I mean, like, I think it's definitely how, like, newer artists have kind of built an audience because the audiences appreciate it. But then you'll get a band that, like you say, Little Angels are a good example, who had, some big notoriety in the time before social media. And then people are kind of expectant about access. Whereas some bands might not be as comfortable with it if they've, kind of grown up in a different industry.
I think it depends, guys, on how you're going to use that access. If some people will use it and abuse it, and then people like me, Ian, and like us guys, that's how we reach out. That's how we ended up with some of the people that's been on the Scouser or the Scot. In fact, all of them, more or less, is because we could get access to them. That's how we could get.
Yeah, it's how I built my audience. Like, is the personal access that, like, I don't think my audience would be there if it wasn't for me knowing every person that supports me. Like, I think that's really important.
I think it's wise enough to use it properly.
Yeah, it's like fire. When the first guy created fire in his little cave, he was like, "Sound, I can cook some stuff."
I think I might have been John, by the way.
This could keep the whole cave warm. And it's like, it's great. But I bet you there was a guy in the next cave that was like, "What if I build a bigger fire?" And I'll just have it all on all the time, and then it sets all his possessions on fire and his lion thing that he had on and his suit on and all.
That's a really good analogy for being a musician.
I'm skint. How can I save on Christmas? I know I can pretend to be Jehovah's Witness.
The thing is, though, Coop, they weren't stupid. Did any of them at that time were they stupid enough to go, I'm going to follow this fucking fire wherever it goes, anywhere in the world, so that I can say I've been with this fire in 5 different places?
I speak to Nathan quite about Nathan James, who's a perfect typical example of social media, how to use it, how to not use it. He knows this. And what I'm saying is no secret. But he always says to me, and every time I get the conversation, he always says, but if Freddie Mercury had social media, Queen wouldn't be the band.
I've said the exact same thing.
He wouldn't be on it.
Can you imagine like Axl Rose in the Appetite era having a Facebook account, or like Liam Gallagher in the 90s having a Facebook account, turning up to venues going, "All right, dickhead, where's the sound guy?" You know what I mean? Like, you'd be blacklisted in an instant if you did that today. You'd never play that venue again. But like,
it'd be open for everyone. It's like anything. In the old days, it was notoriety, and these things spread. Now, the great thing is you get instant fans and you get instant likes, and people come instantly. It's brilliant. But at the same time, with that comes the minute you screw up, the whole world sees it.
They instantly leave you as well.
I think the one thing I would say about it is it's like any tool, it's like we can go on. I'm guessing we could go on to the tool that people either love or hate, and the ones that hate it's because they don't understand it, I would say, and that's Spotify. The world of Spotify. So there's that you just say that word and you'll get an instant reaction, which will either be fucking worst thing that's ever happened in the world, or it's the best thing that's ever happened.
There's so much miseducation about it, though, like that people just don't understand about it. Like, it's not it's not a music company; it's a tech company. It's a tech giant. It's not involved in the music industry.
That's an incredibly important distinction you make there, Pat. The owner of that company is worth 3 times the amount of Paul McCartney is. Yes. It's not a music-based business model at all. It's one of those things where it's like, once you understand that, there's ways of seeing all these tools that we have, like you say, is that Steve Vai says that, you know, when he first he's an old school guy, but he had to learn modern tools to kind of get to his audience. And he said you could see it as being, there's so many different things. There's TikTok, Spotify, all these many, many avenues you can follow. And he said, you can see it as being, oh, there's too many, there's too much going on. I can't be bothered learning how to use these things, whatever. Or you can say, wow, well, actually, there's loads and loads of opportunity here. And there's loads of things that I can pull on and what threads to pull on. And as long as you understand what tool you're using it for, they can be incredibly powerful devices. They really can. Like the average young person now listening to metal, which is kind of my realm, they ingest music way differently than what I did, or even the generation before did. And so once you understand that, it kind of breaks the taboo of like, I'm not going to get involved with TikTok or whatever it may be. Once you understand each of the sort of various mediums better, you can harness them and use them. It's the fire analogy all over again. Once you have that nice warm fire, it's very useful. It's when it gets abused. It's when it's get abused, where bands will, over email out stuff. I was talking to a lady in PR last night about how because they're not used to dealing with people in PR, when they contact them, they think it's like talking on Facebook. So it's like, LOL. Can you get us a show, whatever, face, smiley face, and you're like, you were talking to a PR executive of a major company. What the fuck?
I think one of the biggest problems people have with Spotify, and it's mainly consumers who misunderstand this, not the artist, is that, and I think it's a problem that most people have today because they're starting to realize, you know, how insanely corrupt capitalism and all that kind of stuff be. I don't think that people like Spotify having such a monopoly on the industry. That's what I think people have an issue with. But like, to use your fire analogy, they've got the biggest fire and everyone's cold at the moment, you know, and everyone is kind of, you know, most music audiences are on Spotify. So like, if you take your stand and put your flag in the ground and go, I'm not using Spotify because of this thing that I don't even understand, this fact that I heard 3 other people say, then you don't exist to, you know, 95% of music consumers. So it's utterly pointless you're doing that.
It's Facebook, the same thing, isn't it? People complain about Facebook. People say things like, "Oh, they're just using the data. They're using the data. They're telling me this." You're thinking, how else do you think they make money? They're not doing it as a favor. And
data's a commodity.
It's come on, and I choose to use it. I understand. I use Facebook. They're going to take my data. They're going to sell it on. They're going to kind of spy. And it sounds a bit, but they're going to look at all the stuff I do. That's the deal I've made with them. And you can't have it both ways. You can't go, bloody hate Facebook, they're doing this and this and this. But I sell all my tickets via social media. Really, to be honest,
I wouldn't sell a T-shirt about Facebook. Like,
no, so
Facebook
and I don't know if it's the same as, I know it's increased, but I remember years ago that I remember when Betamax and VHS and people are going, that's the cinema finished with now. And I think times change, and it's not so much music. It's just time changing, and things change. Apart from John, who's been like that since 1872, everyone else has been the same, and everyone just changes. You know, the
thing that like most musicians don't seem to understand, though, they act like the music industry is in dire straits financially. The music industry is making more and more money every single year because of Spotify. Like, that's generating. Obviously, the issue is it's top down, and all the labels are making the revenue. And they're not reinvesting it because they've had a few bad years. So they're trying to, you know, get their bottom end back. That's what's happening. It's like,
I think there's probably a little bit more to that, actually. I think that's right at a superficial level, but it's actually a little bit deeper. I think that now, if you're in a band, now is the best time to be alive in terms of, you can make a record literally in your bedroom. You really can. You can release it. You can do it. You can stream it. You could probably not leave a room. You Bo Burnham style and not leave a room and produce. That's a wonderful thing to have. The trouble is that everybody else can do that. And so then you still go in the same battle that you had. It's just shifted to being, like I say, to be a digital one. But what's interesting and what I found is that we're also in a weird world where we were back in the 70s, when they were signing acts that they didn't have any fucking idea about what they were like. Like, they were signing Pink Floyd and letting them make all kinds of crazy albums, and bands that, you know, bands like Captain Beefheart were getting signed who had they were just going, what the hell is this? We don't know. So now we have got this weird thing, like, you know, who thought that sea shanties would be something that people would get into, you know, because people now are craving something different. So there are avenues. It's not like it's like the door's been closed. It's just been, now we have to get more smarter to what we want to do and what people want, because also the problem here is that people are changing to please their audience, and that can be a dangerous route to go down as well. It's like, okay, I need to be this type of band. I hear this all the time with bands I talk about, that they decide what type of band they are before they even start playing. And it's like, that's incredibly dangerous. You're chasing something that you shouldn't be chasing, because it's going to affect your creativity.
I said to myself at first, I don't know what kind of comedian I'm going to be, but I'm going to be a funny comedian. And now I know that's just nonsense. That's not necessary. I'm not that anymore. I'm not funny. Isn't even in my repertoire. I'm just a comedian. But you're absolutely right. I think you because you pigeonhole big bands pigeonhole themselves. And I suppose King Voodoo, I suppose, a perfect band. What genre are you? What King Voodoo? Are they classic rock? Are the new wave? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, does it? They just
I get wound up with genre.
One of the things that, like, I always say about King Voodoo is we go into a room, we write it. If we like it, we play it, and that's it. It doesn't matter if it sounds like fucking a metal track, a hard rock track, a grunge track, or anything like that. Like, you know, the amount of people who've said to us, like, you grunge, then next week they go, oh, you new wave of classic rock, and we're like, no, we're just King Voodoo.
Can I say funny about Matt? Because Matt, you're with this Sam Miller's new band, Sam Miller's band.
Yeah.
A few people have said to me, "Oh, what do you think of Sam Miller's?" Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's not as heavy as I like it to be. But and I said, well, listen to them. And absolutely, that's your absolutely. But
because the only reference point they've got is Bigfoot. That's the problem. That's the only reference point they've got.
You know, when I say, I like this kind of music, they go, you can't like that kind of music because you like rock. What do you mean you like this? And it's really interesting that I know Verity has an issue because she's saying, oh, a lot of people are going, we don't like you because we thought you were rock. And you go, yeah, but you thought I was rock, but maybe listen. And
I think most people forget how like diverse rock actually is. I mean, you know, Motorhead
absolutely
rock, and then we've got Led Zeppelin, but you'd never think, you know, Ace of Spades was the same genre as, you know, Kashmir, would you? Like it is a very diverse universe, rock.
Yeah, but you know what, Matt, you've just nailed it as well. Like, you know, it's like, you know, you say about Zeppelin, but a lot of their songs are folk songs.
Yeah,
with just a lot of balls. And then you got Queen, who brought in the opera side of things, like, and you're like,
and pop, and a bit jazz in there, and
it's got
vaudeville.
It is.
And driven by you.
What's interesting, I find, is that especially when I'm doing my radio show and I'm getting lots of music sent to me, I find I've got much. I started off and it was nearly all classic rock and stuff like that was playing because that's what I kind of knew. And as it's gone on the year, more and more stuff's been getting sent to me, and it's quite fun. So, like Twisted Illusion, if somebody described to me what Twisted Illusion were before I ever heard them, I wouldn't have listened to it.
Me neither.
Because no, but seriously, because somebody says, "Oh, they're very proggy." Now I'm old enough to have been around when prog started, and I fucking hated it. You know, but
I don't. So I got wound up myself. I got the exact same thing.
But the interesting thing is that I think Matt sent me a track once about something, and I went, I'll tell you what it was. I bought the album. He hectored me, and I bought an album, and I was fucking decorating the bathroom about this time last year, and I had it on in this office, the bathroom straight through there, and I had it on really loud, and it was fucking brilliant. And I remember coming straight through onto Facebook, and I was like shocked, even though I'd bought it. And I went, and do you know why it is? It's because I've since found out that Matt listens to so many different types of music and genres. And although T.I.'s got a sound, he listens to fucking, he switched me on to one of my favourite bands now, which is First Aid Kit.
Oh, I love those guys.
And do you know what it is? If you got a band, you got a group of people that just go in, they bring their influences into it, no matter how diverse that is, and it creates a melting pot that becomes your sound, then I think you're into a fucking winner.
Well, I think the way to view it is that like when you have a band, it like the genre should be the palette you draw from. It shouldn't be like this all defining thing. It should just be like, you know, like if a cooking analogy, it should just be like the type of meat you use, whether you're having lamb or chicken or beef or whatever. That's what the genre is. You know, they're all the same sort of quality, but they just have different textures and different palettes to them and different kind of timbres to them. Neither is better. They just have differences. But you can celebrate them and celebrate the quality within them by being, you know, diverse in your application of them.
We did this to ourselves.
Living Colour. I love my favourite band of all time by a country mile. I love them.
Absolutely.
They're phenomenal, yeah. They're phenomenal.
And a few people say, "Oh, yeah, I don't like them. So I don't quite get. I don't know how to pigeonhole for them," which I understand.
Yeah,
you should be able to like them, right?
Exactly.
You're not working for HMV. You're not putting them anywhere. Yeah. But they can't figure that out. They can't. Some people go, "Yeah, but I don't know what they are." So I'm not going to.
I think one of the worst markets for that, I think, because I get sent it, and you must have got this as well, Pete, when you were doing your radio show, and it's like it's a black and death metal band, it's a folk death metal black. The metal fucking genre coup is the worst for this. I love it to bits, but it's the worst.
It's a valid point.
It's the subgenres that ruins it because everyone wants to be so meticulous in their description of who they are. You're a metal band. Let's just leave it at that.
We kind of did this to ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. We did it. This comes from ingestion and identification, and by that I mean we became so obsessed with identifying every single music. The first thing you ask when someone plays, when you play something to someone, like, listen to this, they go, okay, what is it? Like, is it metal? Is it pop? What is it? And that shouldn't be the first question. It should be like, okay, let me hear this thing, and I'll decide if I like it. As Miles Davis famously said, there's only two types of music, good and bad, and you decide which one is which. Yeah. And then how we ingest that, we wanted it to be as easy as we could. And that's why Spotify was born. That's why we use it. That's why piracy existed, because people were lazy. They didn't want to wait for a CD, or worse, pay for a CD. So that's why we've got ourselves in this.
Can I make a confession? Can I make a confession? So I'd like to say publicly that, like, as such a big advocate of physical music and like people being paid, I used to pirate music and I feel well bad about it. So I feel like this is my musical confession, guys. I used to steal money off artists.
Wait.
I think everyone did. There was a particular point.
Matt, let's be honest. Everyone's done it.
Yeah, but there was a particular point in time where everyone did it. And you didn't realise the impact or what it was doing to the infrastructure. No one knew what it was doing when we started doing it. But people kept on doing it.
Once again, we made a fire, we started it, and we didn't know how it was going to end up. Look, everybody, if you say to a band now, if you said to a band, you could have, 250,000 people listen to your record, right? 250,000 people, 250,000 people listen to your record, but none of them are going to buy it. This is like, imagine sort of 10 years ago, none of them are going to buy it. You're just going to listen to it. Every single band will be like, fuck yeah, I want a 250,000 people listening. Now, because it's so overt, because now you can see the likes and the whatever's on the social media, people get too caught up in that now. And that's why piracy existed, because people couldn't hear certain things because either it wasn't available to them.
Yeah, well, even as young as I am, like, I'm a bit of a weird case because I didn't get the internet in my life until I was about 19, 20 years old. So I was quite a late comer to it for someone of my generation. Like, most people had the internet of my generation. So I still found music quite in a traditional way. My method of finding music was through Kerrang! Magazine, funnily enough. I used to buy it every week. And those bands that had, main features, your Green Days, your Sum 41s, My Chemical Romance, Slipknot, all that kind of stuff. If it was in Kerrang!, that's how I found music. And then I would go to HMV on a Saturday morning. I'd have my £10 spends and I'd buy a CD, mostly based on the artwork a lot of the time. But like, that's completely lost now. That you just, there's so much choice. You're bombarded with it, and it's too much for our little human brains to process.
Let me give you a little tiny sort of two-way thing on this. So I had a gentleman on my show called Yusuf, and he was from Kabul. And he exited Kabul before it all went to shit. And he was a huge metal fan. He's one of the only bands there. There was like 2 or 3 metal bands there. There wasn't very many. There was virtually no scene. This is a place where you could get shot for listening to metal. You could get killed for listening to metal. So you're not going to be buying any CDs from anybody. No one could produce them over there. It's too dangerous. So he had to pirate his music. And they would only get music. He would be able to download one song a day. And over a period of time, he built up like an album. That album meant absolutely everything to him. And I guarantee if he had any money, he would have bought that album, but he wasn't able to. Yeah. So is this me advocating piracy? No, it's not. What I'm explaining is the reason we got into this situation. Now we're in this situation. There are options. You can buy directly from the artist for very little amounts of money. Things like Bandcamp Fridays exist. These are all very easy to do things. You can completely kind of subvert the whole system and buy direct tickets directly from a band now, merch directly from a band now. That's why I think is that, look, if you're going to pirate a band's album, and it does happen, we know it does, of course it does. If you're going to do that, catch them on the back end, go and see them live then.
Yeah,
there's got to be a payback. Now, I tell a story, I told it at the last Q&A we did, where like Iron Maiden picked to go and tour South America, and the places that they picked it were kind of like, well, why the hell are they playing there? That was based on them looking at where people were torrenting their music from, because they weren't buying the music because it was poor countries or it was unavailable. So we're like, fuck, we'll make a ton of money and it'll be great because we know we've got fans there by going to these different countries. So it has to be kind of like, what do you want to put in to get out? And you can't just take the music without putting something else back in.
With South America, there's a bit of a funny thing, because I've had some music to a few different countries in South America, like physically, and their customs are insane. Yeah. I once sent a package to Ecuador, and it took 6 months to arrive because they literally process every single package that goes through the country. So maybe that's a lot of it. Like, they'll happily buy concert tickets when people are there, but they can't get merch as easily to the country because they don't really have like a distributor in South America for them. So
Matt's the only man in the UK that sends parcels to Colombia.
Ecuador.
To Colombia.
Yeah, that's probably not a good. We don't want to talk about those packages. These are different. This is a different.
What you're saying you could pirate.
Stop talking.
What's that? Sorry, say again.
You could pirate someone. You can kind of steal someone's work as long as you kind of pay that back by merch and stuff.
I figure
that's great, because Twisted Illusion, I'm going to go and see now because I broke into Matt's warehouse and stole all the CDs.
It's weird.
It's for my drug business.
It's weird, isn't it? It's just I think that's going to happen. I think people are going to steal music. I think it's going. They shouldn't do. You should just. But if you can easily buy music, you should go and do that. Of course, you should do that. But I'm aware that goes on. We all are. We all know that goes on.
Spotify isn't stealing. Let's just clarify that, because that's the argument that always comes back: is you're not giving money. Right. Let's just do a really basic thing here with Spotify, because this is like one thing that just shuts down any argument. What if I said on this that you've probably not thought about, by the way? Spotify will create more income for an artist than a CD sale.
Yes, probably very true.
Absolutely will. It absolutely will. Over a lifetime, you're going to generate thousands from an album. Most artists will do that, versus that one CD sale at 10 quid. Like, why can't people do basic maths over this?
I think the other thing that we forget about is, I mean, I get a lot of figures in from business magazines, music business magazines, and when we talk about Spotify figures, I mean, I saw a kind of well-known band, but not top band, and they put out their Spotify figures, and they were like 2.4 million. That's amazing. There's a kid here in fucking Liverpool I'd never heard of. I check, he plays acoustic guitar and he sings, Jamie something or other. And I looked at his Spotify figures. He was at fucking 16 million. We're pissing about. Yeah. We're pissing about because we expect all these kids to suddenly wake up, smell the coffee, and go, actually, these other old guys are the ones that we should be following. And you know what? Their albums, I don't give a fuck about them, because what they want is new stuff regularly to keep them interested, because it's a throwaway society.
It's a singles market again.
That lad, by the way, has just sold out 2 dates in the Olympia in I believe, record time. I may be wrong there.
That's amazing.
And that's a big old venue. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We, especially me as an old man, about this whole thing, is that we need to embrace that that's not the win here now. Like Metallica did a long time ago, when they realized people were ripping them off, they tried to do something about it, realized they couldn't. That way they adopted the whole, well, okay, we'll put the live show up, you can download it for a couple of pounds, and that will stop people doing that, or at least stem it a little bit. Now they make all their money from touring. They don't make it from the record. No one does anymore. They make it from touring because they've realized, okay, let's lean into that. It's tough because it means you have to tour fucking way more than you ever did, and yes, the elements of a physical CD is somewhat lacking. But then I'll give you as another case study, ladies and gentlemen, someone like Pellini. He's a guitarist in a very niche band. Yeah. But what he's done, he sells physical medium as well, because he's adopted that whole vinyl and having different colored vinyls and things like that. You've just got to use your head. And Zappa talked about this a long, long time ago, where he's like, if you're good to your fans, if you present them with a quality product, whatever it is.
I love Zappa in interviews. He's so on it with everything.
A CD or a live stream or whatever it may be, if you can present that in an affordable, good quality way, people will always buy it. It's like if you take, as long as you don't take the piss, people will die. There'll always be someone who'll pirate your stuff. There'll always be someone who'll fuck around. But generally speaking, people will adopt that. They will do.
I'm glad you mentioned Zappa because he leads quite nicely onto a subject that I've kind of copied Zappa's business model a bit, because bootlegging, like, he had control of his bootlegs, which I think is really something that a lot of modern bands could cotton onto to generate a lot of income for themselves, and stop being so precious about every performance being perfect and all this kind of stuff, and get into the bootlegging side of stuff, because your fans care about that. You might not think it's like that notable that you played, you know, the Dog and Duck, but you might have played that one song that you don't play, or that thing might have happened in that solo, and that
did that, did they not, quite early doors?
Yeah.
Pearl Jam took responsibility.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. A lot of bands back in the day really understood the value of like taking control of the bootleg, and we've done it with Twisted Illusion, and we archive every single show we do. So, so for a good example of this, like, obviously, like, a band at our level, there's not a huge amount of money playing live for us unless you can sell a lot of tickets. So what we've done in the past is we might have played a venue where we might have got 100, 150 quid guarantee in expenses or something. And then we bootlegged the gig ourselves and then sold 50 copies of a bootleg at 10, 15 quid a copy. And suddenly that gig's made us 1,500 quid at a later date. So it's like, just, you know, adapting these little nuggets of things that you can...
Yeah, you don't have to look very far to see some wonderful business models that are doing, like NTS Shikari and stuff like that. Bands like are doing a thing
amazing,
where it's like, buy our stream or buy our album digitally, and it allows you to have a ticket to the show.
Yeah,
and it's like like Zappa was doing this a long time ago. He was the first person to properly own his master tapes, you know, and do all this kind of crazy creativity stuff. And it's just really good examples of, like, it's just a case of knowing the medium and applying it without taking the piss. You bring up a great point. Bands you should be recording your live show, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody in a band now, you should be fucking recording your live show. If it's only just for you, just to listen to what you're doing right and wrong, but you should also record it because it's content. Because you can
just get like a great like Zoom recorder. I've got a H4 and it cost me about 150 quid. You put that in a room as like an ambient mic, you'll get a great recording of the room. We do it every time. We've got some really good sounding quality stuff.
And I must admit that, to go back to Spotify again, I was, you know, Ian and I had conversations about this all 18 months ago, 2 years ago, about we saw Spotify as the enemy. We didn't want it. And it was Matt's talking about it to me, first I interviewed him, made me look at it. And then I really started digging down into it more recently. And, you know, in May 2020, when the man that owns it came out and said, well, the problem is that the people, that musicians aren't bringing out enough. They need to be bringing out something new every month. And me and every other fucking band was straight on about it. You dirty, thieving, rotten bastard. And that's because we don't fucking understand it. And it's a marketing platform. And when he says...
Yeah, marketing platform is exactly right.
He says, he says once a month, he's talking about, he's not like me. I thought, how the fuck does a grassroots band record, mix and master a new song every month if they're not able to do it in their own studio? And then I realized when I really dug down into it, and in fact I did a course, an online course, and they explained that no, if you put out a new single in January and your next new single is going to be April, so basically in fucking February you could put out a recording of one of your live gigs.
Yep.
Or you could put out a podcast of you talking to me and Eve about the next song that's coming out. It's about content, and it's about telling people your story, and it's about finding your tribe and making them buy into you. And that's what it is. And that's what most people, including myself until recently.
Because the algorithm relies on consistency. Like, you've got to have consistency. That's how you win this game. You've got to be consistent.
It's about content and interaction. So when he says, like, you need to be releasing something every week, what he means, realistically, it should be every day, is you should be releasing some form of content. It doesn't mean it's a full song or an album. It doesn't mean that. It could be an amusing video. It could be a little photo. It could be whatever it is. But you're generating content to keep interest. And then it's interaction. If someone likes your video, or puts a comment saying, how did you play that? What guitar did you use? Whatever. Interact with these people. You would do it at the show if they come to you at the show and say, what pedals do you interact with these people?
What winds me up is that I call it the cunt thumb. It just winds up.
There we go.
Can you imagine that in real life? Someone walks up to you and goes, hey man, that was a great show, and you just went.
Nothing else.
I'd headbutt them. Wouldn't you headbutt that person? You'd be like, you what? Shut up.
It's the musical.
Like people do on social media, though.
It's the musical equivalent of slackerism.
Yeah.
Pete, do you see comedians, Pete? Do you guys like? How do you like? Live shows is everything for you guys, but I can remember when I used to buy the Billy Connolly albums in the 70s and then the tapes and all that. So do you guys, or the big boys, do they use Spotify and things like that?
Yeah, they do, but they don't. There's no money in it, but unlike bands, the comedians we do. So if I'm putting something on Spotify, I've got to do a podcast on it, and no one's in a show. It's like in a band, you release something, you listen to it, you go and see it live. I can't do that because once you've heard the joke, you've heard the joke. Like, it's a song. So and you have to do podcasts, all these different things, which work. Some of the comedians, top comedians, are incredible at it and brilliant. And
Bill Burr's started doing vinyl now, hasn't he? Bill Burr's he did Red Rocks recently, and he's putting it on vinyl. I love Bill Burr, by the way.
Henry Rollins has done that as well.
Billy Connolly's my hero in action. I got Billy Connolly, not because I've seen him live a few times, but not because I watched him on telly, because I used to buy the albums. Yeah. I used to hear the storytelling on the albums.
Bum, Billy Connolly bites your bum.
Well, that's it, though. Big thing. So, I mean, but it's funny, it's different, isn't it? Because I've got 3 gigs I got plug in February, but the 3-hour shows, but they're completely different than you would hear otherwise because you can't repeat it. And we can repeat bits, but so
they're 3 different shows then. So you'll do
I'm doing one in the change. Even when I did the 2 shows in one day, they end up completely changing.
Yeah, because it's a surprise of the audience reaction, isn't it? That's going to drive the atmosphere.
It's like bands, you know what it's like. It's the same thing.
I hate bands that like know what they're going to say in the middle of songs. I don't like that. I think that's really stupid. Like
they shall remain nameless. They shall remain nameless. But I was privy to a very, very big band, and I was side of stage for them, watching them, and it was all great. And I looked to the singer's like mic stand, and he had an iPad, and I thought that was going to be set list and maybe, I don't know, maybe some cues or something. And what I realised was, and I thought it may be the lyrics, and I've got no problem with lyrics going up there to read them if you get them, no problem.
Yeah, I need that
no problem at all. But I noticed that he had pre-written things to say to the audience.
Yeah, that's really
And I was so pissed off. Yeah. Because he said those things and everybody reacted as though, and it's like, I get it. It's the Hello Cleveland thing. I get it. I get that. But Jesus, it took a bite out of my enjoyment of that. Like, it really did.
Yeah. And then you can tell, can't you? I mean, I saw Kiss. And we've all seen Kiss, and Kiss a Kiss. And I look at Paul Stanley, you know, he kind of goes, oh my God, it's so great to be here. And I look at him and thinking, you have no idea where you are. And you have no care where you are either. And that, in a way, that's fine, because that's my fault for buying a ticket. So you can't do that. And I did 2 shows, and I had this, I wrote it up brand new, took ages, did a show in the afternoon, went really well. Second show came in, and it was literally 60 people, 40 of them were pissed up waiting for the England game to come on. So it was great.
That's
it was
a great
show, but it was a very different kind of show. I was picking on people in the audience more. I was doing this, but that's experience. And I've been doing it for a while. And I suppose like in bands, it's experience in bands, isn't it? I think so. I know bands, and without again picking on any bands, but there's nothing worse for me when you see a band and they're tuning up or something, so they've got to talk to the audience, which is difficult. I couldn't imagine doing that. But then they say things like, "Come on, guys, are you still there?"
And then they'll say it a second time. That's not good enough.
And like, I suppose Dave Grohl, love him or hate him, I love him, but Dave Grohl have you ever watched that first ever Foo Fighters gig? That he talks to the audience and he can't do it.
Really?
And he's talking about that gig. He's going, "Look at me, I am dreadful at this, but I knew I had to be able to do it." And I like that. But yeah,
do you know who's the best, the absolute best for that? There's a video you should watch. No, Devin Townsend, like, he's the best.
Just about to say that, yeah.
Right, so there's a video of him at it's Prog Metal Festival in Barcelona. The PA dies on them. No, not PA. Their backing track, something like just will not work. And there is about a 20-minute period. There's about 2,000 people sat there, and Devin Townsend just entertains the crowd.
He did it. Not the last Bloodstock. The Bloodstock before. Sorry, maybe the Bloodstock before that, actually, if memory serves. But he did exactly that. He was meant to come on. Everybody's really hyped. He came on, and there was some major malfunction. And there was no sound. And he entertained the Bloodstock crowd for like 10, 15 minutes.
Going though, but like he literally did like a stand-up comedy spontaneous like routine and had the crowd in stitches and just all these little bits of like words. But like that's just a consummate professional.
Do you let people record you when you're doing your stand-up?
Yeah, I'm not precious at all because I do absolutely.
That's how you go viral, isn't it?
Well, and also because I'm not going to make millions from it. So I remember once I thought it was I did a gig. It was the last. I did a Thea did an hour, Barry White did an hour, and I did an hour. And it was a weird gig because people were there to see Thea because it was the last show with 3 of them. But it was great. And actually, I had not a set. I had like a set list. I suppose it's like 12 words that just reminded me of my hour set. Yeah. And somebody came afterwards and goes, "Can I take that?" And I thought, well, I could do with it tomorrow. But actually, yes, you can. Yeah. And then somebody else said to me, "Oh, you shouldn't have given them that because they might put it on the internet." And I thought, well, if I've got a word like dogs, fat people. Eggs.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah.
So then, I let them. I'm at a stage now that I'm 48. I'm very lucky to do what I'm doing. I'm not really going to make millions from it. If I say millions, I mean pounds from it. And I'm thinking if anybody's going to come and pay their money, hard-earned money, to come and see me, they can take what they bloody well want from it.
The reason I ask is because if you take a photo or picture or a video of a band playing a song, well, that's fine because you can hear that song over again. But if someone takes a sound recording of your joke, the next time they see you, then is the punchline's not going to land right?
Unless you work it. So I've got my probably best joke. I don't think it was great at the time, but it was a joke about Kiss when I was taking the piss out of Kiss.
With the cat,
on the second day of the Wayward Sons gig. And that everyone was expecting it. And it's like that song. I thought, well, again, now I know everyone's expecting it. I can build up that bit more. Because let's face it, I'm not bright enough to figure another joke out. You know, if a joke works, it can work 15 times. So, but of course, then it got legs of its own, and the fans felt a part of it. And actually, even like a punchline, it's like we were saying before with the comedians and anything, like TV shows, we all feel comfort in something that we know is going to happen. I don't know how many times I've watched Police Academy 2, and I know Mahoney's going to be cool at the end. I know that, right? So I think, but you can be precious about things, but I'm not very precious about things. I realise that it's people came to see you and not the jokes.
So, guys, I think we're getting to the stage now where we need to think about the next sort of thing. And what I would like you to do individually is tell us how you foresee 2022. From whatever perspective you're looking at it from, whether you're an MC, whether you're a musician, whether you're fucking doing podcasts or whatever. What do you think 2022 is going to be like, and why?
I'll just throw in straight away. It depends what Boris does tonight on that speech.
Yeah.
So
he's going to say nothing, mate. He's talking shit. He's only in there trying to make it look like he fucking knows what he's doing. Prick.
Boris is actually, I don't want to give the game away here. I know some of you listeners have heard it already. Boris's speech is the announcement that he's joined Twisted Illusion.
I fucking knew it.
Mate, I'd have him. Think of the controversy I get with him in my band.
Think of the way that you get that.
Great.
I tell you what, mate.
You would get your back room decorated. You would have a party. Sorry, a gathering. You'd be the best band ever.
At least that's one would be giving you money, mate, not taking.
Yeah. So you would have 100 babies in the changing room, all belonging to Daddy Guitarist.
Shit. You'd be guaranteed at a Downing Street party. You'd be playing that. You'd be laughing like,
I know.
A gathering, not a party, a gathering.
Wine and cheese.
Yeah, we don't get cheese and wine in Manchester.
Fucking hell.
You do in Scotland. But it's Buckfast.
Oh, yeah.
Buckfast and cheese.
Buckfast and deep fried Mars bars. That's posh.
So go on then, Coop. I think.
So what does next year look like? It's okay. Well, let's start with the bad news. The bad news is it is going to get worse, because the damage that was done in the last 2 years isn't just, even if we go right tomorrow, there's no more pandemic and everything's back to normal. That doesn't solve all of the problems that have gone before. So the 2 years before has decimated the music industry on multiple levels. I'll give you some very simple examples. So venues have closed. This has happened. Venues have closed. They're not going to get opened again because they were sold to other people to make other things, because they had to make, people who own them had to make their money as well.
A lot of things have been turned into flats.
Yeah, or students' accommodation or whatever. And then you've got okay, all the people that were promoters, well, if you've not got anywhere to promote, guess what happens? You don't become promoter. And they have to lean into their 9-to-5 job that they had, because most of them did. Lean into 9-to-5 job just to stay on head above water. Then you've got all the people that crew those systems. So I've got a friend who is a monitor engineer, and he had to sell all of his equipment and his van that he uses. He's played with some very well-established bands. Had to sell all that to stay alive, just to stay in the game. Then when we come out of it, people are like, well, okay, I want to book you again. So he buys a whole new load of stuff. This is midway through the first lockdown. Then it all goes to shit. He has to sell it again. Do you think he's going to bother a third time? No, he's got a family. He's going to have to look at that. We've lost all of those places, those people, those skills. And that's before we even get to the bands that have split up, because they can't afford to pay for rooms anymore. They can't afford to pay for practice areas. They can't afford to do the things that you can't do remotely. We've lost all of them. They're gone. And that's it. All we can do is learn from that lesson. So that's the bad news, is that it's created a very big scar that we're never going to heal. And what we're better doing is wearing that scar and going, okay, look, this is all the situation is now. This is what we've got left with. Now let's move forward. I hoped, and I think it's the case, that now this new year gives us a lot of hope, because now I hope that people realize that live shows matter, that playing in live arenas matters, that going to see your local band matters, at a local venue matters, that buying merch, all these things matter, because we've seen what happens when that doesn't happen. So now, what I've seen, and I have seen the shoots of this beginning, is people are going to more shows. They are going to more shows. I don't know how long that's lasting. I hope it picks up, and I hope it keeps that going that way. What I hope as well is a lot of bands take a very, very cold, hard look at what they're doing and be ready to change, be ready to go, look, you know, we're a pub band, we're not getting gigs, what can we do? And start looking at that and reaching out to other musicians, reaching out to other people in the music industry, you know, help me try and move to what the next stage is. And change the way they produce and change the way they put out music and look at it in a very positive light. And then I really hope that everybody helps each other. My inbox is always open, because if you've got a show going on or something you want help with, whatever I can do, I will help you. Whatever I can do. And this goes on to a very deep problem that I don't want to bring everybody down, because we're meant to be joking and talking about Everton's laughable performance tonight. But we also have to lead on we have to lead into a little bit to what mentally has happened to a lot of musicians and crew, and it's brought a very dark cloud. We are artists and you are artists, and they like to have an audience to present stuff, and it's a very cyclical process that you must hear the laughter, you must hear the applause. Your art is something that must be created from, most of the time, positive situations. So if people are having trouble with mental illnesses as well, they have to look at that and have to go, okay, I need help and I want to help those people around me. We have to put our arms around everybody. And this isn't just metal, this is every musician and every venue. You have to look deep inside and then project outwards and help everybody that is around you in your local vicinity. People have to wonder, how do I change the world? Well, it starts by changing what you see in front of you. If you know a venue's closing, fucking do something about it. If you know a guy who's a lampy who needs work, put out his portfolio. If you know a band's not getting those likes, start sharing that shit. Start doing something about it. If you've got friends in bands, help them out. If you were a plumber, they would go, well, actually, my mate needs a plumber. I'll suggest my friend. Why wouldn't you do that with your own fucking bands? So the bad news is we had that. But the good news is, look, we've seen how bad it can get. Let's use that now and go when we go forward. This year could be great. There's some fantastic projects that I'm involved in and some fantastic projects that I'm just looking forward to, where people have just gone, right, let's start fucking doing this. No one's going to help us. We're only going to help ourselves. Peace.
Can I just say, well done, Coop. You
Peace.
Only said the F-bomb 3 times during that last...
Fuck, motherfucker. There you go.
I genuinely would like to applaud that. I think...
Thank you.
I think you make a very valid point.
But can I just put an addendum to that? We saw all the people in 2020 that when we couldn't go out and couldn't do anything, there were no gigs on, saying, can't wait to go to a gig. And the bastards never came to gigs. So what Coop's saying is right. But don't come on social media saying you're going to do it, or you are doing it when you're quite clearly not, you know, because that's the other thing.
I've gone to social media and said I'm going to the gym, and I had no intention to.
Oh, no, it comes back to what I said earlier.
We knew though.
What you've just said comes back to what I kind of touched on earlier, was that people like the idea and the romanticism of going to a local gig and being that person, but a lot of people don't actually physically do it. They like the idea of it and the characteristic of it. And unfortunately, the kind of people that do go to those gigs, they want to kind of celebrate themselves being there more than the bands that they're watching. They're like, well, I'm supporting the bands. And it's all about
like virtue signaling for music,
rather than...
In fairness,
Listen,
I've taken that on
we
board
could
this
solve
year.
this. We could solve this, sorry, but we could solve this in 3 easy steps. Instead of saying you're interested to going to say you're going to a show, instead of saying going to a show, buy the ticket before you get there. There's a very simple thing you can do before we even start.
Advanced tickets is a whole other argument, definitely. But
but wait a minute, I would just like to say there, as a promoter myself that has promoted shows, and we have had to cancel a fair few this year because of lack of ticket sales. And then I was told, well, we don't buy the tickets in case the show doesn't happen, and then you hold on to the money.
Yeah,
that's the big boys. We don't do that as promoters. If the show is cancelled, you'll have your money back within days. So if that's you think that's the case, it isn't the case with most of us who do the smaller venues. So just if you, I'm putting it out as you maybe don't know that, but it's true. Anyway,
I'm sure Pete's going to say now about pre-sales because I'm sure that affects him massively.
Go on, Pete.
But it's tricky, isn't it? Because as a performer, you want to put on Facebook, listen, if you pre-sale this, if you buy a ticket now, that'd be great. But then you don't want to come across as I need ticket sales because weirdly, how to sell tickets as you go actually selling really well. I'm very fortunate. I checked my ticket sales today for my February gigs. They're not. I'm not gonna drive away with a Porsche, no doubt. No, but I spoke to my support acts and said, listen, if we don't get many people through the doors, I spoke to them weeks ago. What would you want to do, right? And they went, well, if it's 200, we'll play the gig. So because and the venues have all agreed on me with this as well. So it was such a nice for me as a performer to thinking, the more people, the better. But actually, I won't lose money. I'll lose a bit of money, but not that much money on these sales. But I can understand. I spoke to people and they said, I know what you're saying, but I just don't want to put money in because I don't think Scotland, for example, in Glasgow will be open. And there's a part of me that goes, I want to push them and say, please buy it. And then there's a part of me that says, well, it's their money, I suppose. And there's no difference in me buying a ticket for a holiday. I won't buy one yet. So it's that weird thing, isn't it? You can't force people to buy it.
Yeah, because you've got to have this like interesting dynamic. Like you've got to kind of be aware that your audience, they want to have confidence in you, and you don't want them to see you like kind of with your pants down almost. You want them to. Of course. You want to be like, no, we've got confidence. We're going to sell this show, and you're going to be there. Not please be there, or it won't happen. It's not a good dynamic to kind of.
Although having said that, guys, I'm a promoter, and I'm the one that's sitting here every fucking day, going onto the computer screen to see how many tickets have not sold. And when I know that, I will always pay the bands a guaranteed fee because I think they should get a guaranteed fee. And I've also got the costs of the high on the venue because I won't use shit venues. And then the other thing on top of that is you owe it to the venue to bring enough people in that actually they're making money over the bar because that's the only place to make money. So, if you look at it that way as well, I'm just putting the other side of it. And I will be 100% honest with you here. I started, I think the first gig I put on was that one with you and Blitz. And that was June, July?
June it was, yeah. June.
It was the day of England's first game in the European. There were about fucking 12 people turned up, 15 people, okay? And between then and the one that I ended up having to cancel the other last week, it's probably cost me between $4,000 and $5,000.
Shit, man.
Here's the inconvenient truth that you're talking about is when you prepay for a ticket for that show, you're not prepaying for that show. You're giving the money to the promoter so he can book future shows. Yeah. And here's the inconvenient truth. I did a talk at Liverpool University, and I said, look, and you're not going to like this, ladies and gentlemen, but it's the truth. We're going to have to take a few bullets to keep this surviving. We're going to have to take a couple of cancelled shows. Gasp, you may even lose some money. You may even go to a show that's not got a lot of people there. Yeah. You're going to have to go to shows that you may not 100% think will be amazing, but you've got to go because we're going to have to take a few bullets here to keep the whole thing moving. When you give your money to a promoter, he's already 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many months in advance booking ahead And that entirely is based on how much pot of money he has, which, no surprise, is very little. And they use that money there. So when you're, you know, if you buy your ticket 3 months before the show, he could start really planning and really putting in a proper calendar of events and building up these things. So eventually, if everybody starts coming to these gigs, you get bigger bands because you can pay bigger fees and get them for further things, and et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that you're not paying for that show. You're paying for the next few that go from that.
And the other thing is with me, I will point out, I'm not a typical promoter in that 90% of what I put on are the bands that I work with as the manager as well. So it's a double-edged sword for me. So basically, I don't book big bands and then fill it up. So I don't bring in the bands that we all know would sell the place out. So that's, and to be fair, I came into it knowing that there was a good chance I was going to lose quite a bit of money, but I did it because it got the brand out there. So it was marketing in my perspective. Plus it was getting my bands out there. And from those things, even the gig which we did where there was only about 20 people, 3 of the 4 bands that were playing that night all got booked onto festivals next year.
This is exactly the point. This is exactly the point. What you're saying about taking bullets for things. It's like, and bands are really bad for this. They're so afraid of losing 50 quid or 100 quid to think of a long-term goal. Like, the amount of bands that will spend, 5-6 grand on recording an album and then have no marketing budget whatsoever, no PR budget, no radio plugger, no, just anything like Facebook ads, Instagram ads. And they're so afraid of, like you say, taking a few bullets and just
it's a question of perspective a little bit as well. Like, I'll give you an example, give you a simple example. So, people are like, well, 200 people came to my show. Well, I've watched shows where 200 people look shit, and they're not interactive. I've watched arena shows where like 15,000 people and it looks like there's no life there at all. It's perspective. I go to see someone like God Complex play downstairs in the Jacaranda. If that fits in more than 40 people, I'd be surprised. 40, maybe 30 people at best, But every single person in there is that gig is for that 2 hours is their life, and they are absolutely, and it's such an amazing vibe that when people see the video, that's like, I want to fucking be in that room. That's incredible. And they build on that, and we build this scene.
There's never an excuse, is there, to pay people to go and see you and you not give them 100%. There's never an excuse.
And they changed playing in front of 30 people to be in this wonderful, amazing event. And then that's where like the likes of Loathe were born from, and they just take that. Then they move up to a bigger.
And you do 50, and you do 100.
Listen, Matt, we know 3 weeks ago, we did a gig, and
we did.
It wasn't a full. It wasn't, the venue wasn't great at the time. There wasn't a lot of people. It was a bit of a scrappy gig. It was a charity gig. It was quite easily as a compere, or as a musician, we could have gone on that stage and gave 50%, and we would have felt okay with that. But we didn't. And I know
we played like it was an arena. Like,
you know what I mean? It was, and that's because every single person who's there, you don't know. And I'm saying this with my gigs, you don't know how much they've sacrificed to get there. And I did a gig once, very lucky, and it was in Leeds, and it was a comedy festival, and I had no idea about the tickets. And there was 129 people, beautiful, style. It was an amazing gig. The next day did Hastings, not the best place in the world ever. And I went in there, and they hadn't pushed it, they hadn't promoted it. It wasn't anything to do with me, really, but it was my gig. 2 people. That night was incredible. I took them to the bar. I did a show at the bar. We all joined in. These 2 people deserve to get anything else that the other night did. I just don't buy into. I know some certain bands. I'm not afraid to talk about them really. But when I sometimes see bands like the Wildcats having a bad day, I kind of go, I understand you're having a bad day, but these guys are paid a lot of money.
Yeah, so I agree. Yeah.
Can't you just have a bad day behind the scenes? Because you can't go to a West End play, and to me there's no different. I see music as theatre.
Entertainment, theatre. Yeah.
You can't have an actor going, I fucked up my lines, but it doesn't matter because I'm having a shit day. It doesn't work that way. And I don't know, I think the fans are the most important thing here. And we're all important, but people pay them. No one's rich.
I've been privileged enough to be with a band, work with a band playing the Polish Woodstock. That's 500,000 people. Okay, wow. That's like that's half it. That's like fields and fields of people. Yet the next night, just so you know, was in Zurich, in a small club in Zurich, and I would say, I reckon it's 80 people. And there's no way it's over 100. I'm here to tell you that band performed exactly the same, and that's a pro band that's been around 20, 30 years. You must know that.
The 2022 thing, I genuinely think one of the positive things in 2022 is the bands that don't do that, because this horrible time we're going through now, as performers and the theatres and the clubs, and I know this are quieter than it should be. I think the good news is with this, is next year bands are going to learn that the hard way. And they're going to learn, if they get 12, 14, 16 people at a gig, they're going to have to treat these people just as put on fair, get a selfie afterwards. You guys were great. Don't put, God, it was shit last night. There was only 16 of you, because these 16 won't come back. You know, and this is common sense and this is politeness. But I think 2022 is going to be awesome. And that's the reasons people are going to learn about every single fan.
It'll separate the kind of weak-minded musicians, I think, because that's what I saw a lot of it. The bands that quit really early in the pandemic were really obvious to me, and I was like, yeah, it's clear you didn't have a backbone for this, to me anyway. I won't mention any names, but like, you know, you can tell the people who are in this for the right reasons and that want to, you know, bring new music to people. You can tell those people a mile off.
I tell you what surprised me was from the first lockdown, so let's say March 2020, some bands just cryogenically froze themselves and did fuck all. And I thought, you're going to go backwards. And then there were other bands that were so on it like a car bonnet. They were going through it. They were doing everything. They were getting people talking about them. And then came the gigs. And all of a sudden, the bit that I didn't work out was that the bands that cryogenically froze themselves, so had the fans. Because guess what? Whenever somebody says, who should we have in our festival? It was all these fucking bands that had done nothing. They were suddenly...
I don't really get that as a band member, because as a comedian, as an author or whatever, during that lockdown, and I was kind of walking through it, but even then, the creative nature, you kind of feel antsy. I need to get out on that stage. I need to go out and perform. That's what I like doing. That's what I do. So I think, like all bands, you're thinking, well, we're stuck indoors. I didn't enjoy the live. I don't enjoy watching live performances on my laptop. I just don't do.
I thank God with the streaming thing.
But I did a few gigs myself because I needed to create, and I don't think if you've got a band who've frozen and not, you know, they might have other reasons. They might not be able to do it because of jobs or what have you, and I get that. But if they just couldn't be bothered because they weren't making the sales, then as a person, I'm going, well, if you don't need to create, I've got no interest in you because I don't have faith in you in the future. You know, that kind of thing.
Personally, I don't know about anyone else here, but 2020 was like the most lucrative year we've ever seen. Like, there was
a lot of people learned how to monetize what they were doing, and
there was real support. There was real support, like from fans.
Now the average sort of young person in a band now, their life is not the same as it was 10 years ago. And I give you so the example I give is that you would normally have a 9-to-5 job that would pay for them to pay for practice rooms, and they would tour at the weekends occasionally midweek. Yeah. Now, the young people have revenue streams, so they don't have a 9-to-5 job. They could be a Twitch streamer doing video games on a couple of nights. Another time they're making stuff and selling it on Etsy. Another time they're doing this. Yeah. They have multiple streams now.
I must have about 10, maybe 12 income streams.
And so now we've learned to kind of monetize the product. We've read, okay, well, actually, I know how I can get in touch with my audience. I know they can buy stuff from me and get it done, and that's a great thing. That's
Ian, you still make money. You still make money from your gigolo work, don't you?
I do. This is a different call. No, but let's look at something like OnlyFans. You know, there's people who bemoan it and say what a terrible thing, and it's people are, it's like prostitution digitally and all the rest of it, and that's fine. But some people are paying themselves through student life and surviving because
I don't like Only. I'm going to say no. I'm not a fan of OnlyFans because I looked at your site and it put me off the lunch for ages.
Right, but it's I said, look, Pete, when I booked you for fucking this, I said, you've got to mention that. You so obliged when you're a bastard.
What the internet did was sped everything up. You know, the internet sped everything up. Evolution, if you will.
It didn't speed his live feed up. His naked live feed.
I think guys, we're gonna have to get to the stage now where we're gonna have to draw this together. And I think one point I would like to make is that I think we've been very honest tonight in everything that we've talked about. And this is a plea to the social media groups. You do wonderful work, most of you, but do not fucking make it look rosier than it really is, you know? And be honest, because, you're not helping anybody by making it look like it's fantastic when it isn't. Let's be honest. I was very honest in some of the gigs. I was saying, look, guys, if we don't sell enough tickets for this, well, I'm going to have to pull it. To give people a choice, I was being honest. I was then told that I was holding a gun to people. So I said, no, I'm being honest. And I even broke it down to why. You know, this is what it's cost me. This is what it's cost that, blah, 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 blah. And somebody then said, well, you should just pick bands that people want to go and see.
People don't want honesty on social media, though.
People don't. And I kind of get that in a way. I am honest on social media. If I'm having a shit day, I don't put it on social media. That's the problem. The one, right, so the one thing I'll bring up about that is like, that people only think you should post positive things on social media. I disagree with that. Like, to me, that's quite psychotic to only have one side of yourself. Like, to me, it should just be you're either on there or you're not. Like, and to me, it's all kind of it's all me. Like, if I've had a bad day, it's just as important as me sharing a glorious moment in my life as well, because it all makes up who I am. And well, that's for you, isn't it? I think you're right. And I think for me, and I know the same thing for the opposite. If I'm having a shit day, I feel a bit, I don't genuinely have shit days. I'm very lucky. But if I do, I don't put it on social media because I know then I'll kind of echo chamber that myself. So that's for my reason, nobody else. And
as long as you're self-aware that you do have an echo chamber, like I'm very aware that I've got people who are always on my side. And as long as you're aware of that and you don't fall into it and you crotch and like awareness. Feel shit, please give me some dopamine.
What I'm talking about is, Pete, what I'm talking about is the difference between, we did a gig a couple of weeks ago and it was Ashen Reach, Blame the Sacred, etc. So
I was meant to be our gig, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And the thing it was, though, that we were very honest. We said it was a brilliant night. The bands played out of their skin. They were fantastic. The people that were there absolutely loved it. But there was only about 30 there. We showed the camera angle as it really was. The people that were there absolutely loving it. The band's giving it 100%. And I was honest. It's these ones that make it and they do a camera angle, and you can see them all doing it all the time. But and it makes it look like there's fucking.
Are you talking about one of these pricks at compere?
Wide angle.
Get a selfie and pretend it's their own gig.
Yeah. I was thinking of you people. No, but seriously,
make sure you get a wide angle lens.
Compare it. I take a photo. Then I do my own gig in Birmingham the next day for 16 people. Guess what photo I use?
And there has to be an element of that, guys. But as long as everybody thinks, I mean, I was accused of being a promoter just out to make money, which is a fucking laugh. But the thing with it was is that
that lucrative career path.
It's just you don't need to be down. You just need to be honest. And more importantly, you don't need to paint pictures that are actually untruths.
Yeah. Because there's enough positivity. There's enough like truth that is really positive in the music industry. Like the access, and you know, there's a million arguments for positivity. It's not all bleak. I know we've talked about quite a lot of bleak things today, but you know, there's an immense amount of great music coming out today, and I think if we can, you know, focus on that a little more than all the, you know, political bullshit of social media, I think we'll be in a much better place. Just focus on the records that are coming out, the great new.
Apart from the last Maiden album, let's not talk about that. Let's just stop it right now. We don't want to talk about that. Every song was 9 minutes too long. It wasn't very good. Like I said it now. There you go.
But that's true though, because I say it quite regularly in my radio show. I'm old. I'm old enough to have seen most of the proper
French
music,
Revolution,
the real music. You know, the different ones.
Children of the Revolution.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, guys, I've been around enough to have seen from the Who onwards, right? So I've seen the funk, I've seen fucking everything, and I reckon that the music that's out there just now in abundance is better than I've ever known it. In my eyes.
No, we're not talking about the new Maiden album again, are we? Because that's a lie.
Oh, it's so bad. And I'm a big Maiden fan. Like,
I'm a huge Maiden fan.
Yeah, I used to be in an Iron Maiden tribute. I was so disappointed with Senjutsu.
I didn't put it on social media because the reason being I didn't put it on is because people would then argue, and I thought, I'm not arguing with you. I just don't want to listen to it anymore.
I had a few arguments.
Hey, I was just going to say, listen, if you ever want to have an argument, just put a question on Matt's page when he's put a statement on. It's fucking great, mate.
If you actually go into Wikipedia now and you put in Agent Provocateur, it's an image of Matt that comes up.
There you go.